Struggling to help your player improve his fielding? Believe it or not, just 10 minutes a day can transform their defense. Let me show you how. My name is Evan Mendoza, and I've been through it all, from playing 4 years on varsity in high school, 3 years at NC State, a World Baseball Classic, and even 7 years of Pro Ball between the St. Louis Cardinals and San Diego Padres. Today, I'm going to be sharing my go-to tips and routine to develop great habits. And before we dive in, I do want to invite you to download my 27-page blueprint. It's down below in the description, and it's going to help high school baseball players get recruited. All right, so let's go over it. This is actually one of my favorite routines that I'm going to be talking through, and this is where I'm really discussing the difference between using a regular baseball, a tennis ball, and a racquetball. So racquetballs are the most bouncy. It's going to be the hardest to actually do, and that's why I always loved using racquetballs around the house. Obviously, you can see right here I have a brick wall to be able to do this ground ball routine. And it's really, really simple. You don't need much, and that's the idea of this. You can do it at home. Starting off, you're going to be at your knees. You're going to be really focusing on, like I mentioned right here, the top of your head going to be facing the wall. And you're really going to be focusing on very, very slow and deliberate moves for your player, right? So this isn't going to be super crazy. This is stuff that I did in high school, believe it or not. These fundamental moves really developed me into the player that I've become, right? So after we do a square, we're going to be doing, some backhands right here. And I do not want you guys to start with racquetballs. I would recommend starting with a baseball if you're outside, if you're able to, because obviously I don't want you to be breaking the walls inside your house or anything like that. But tennis balls work great as well. And this is where I want you guys to also be focusing on where and how you're catching the ball. If we're just focusing on catching the ball, it's not going to be enough. As you can tell right there, I was mentioning funneling up to your nose, because everything that we do really stems from our eyes. And if our eyes are behind the baseball, that's going to be helpful. So as you can tell right here, I was just kind of going through the motions, but I wasn't necessarily funneling it out to the back of my nose, right? So after we do just normal ground balls, as you could tell in the first couple of examples, it was more of a rolling ground ball. Now we're going to be working on short hop. So I'm throwing the ball a little bit higher. I was starting with two hands, and then I moved to one hand. And of course, every single ground ball is going to be treated differently depending on where it bounces, whether we want to be working through the ball or giving into the ball. Same thing with, the backhands right here. We want to be with our head behind the ball. We want to be able to see the ball hit our hand. We also want to understand where we're catching the ball. If we catch it poorly, we're going to be notified immediately. And that's why it's so important to be using tennis balls. It's so important to be using racquetballs, because it's going to give you that instant feedback. Now, once we, go through the ground balls barehanded, we go through the short hops barehanded, we're going to kind of go through that same routine again with our glove. And this is where, again, very slow, very deliberate movements. As you can tell, I'm not in any rush, funneling that ball with my glove, with my hand to the belly button. Now we work on our backhands again. I always like to kick out my left leg, just because that's the proper positioning that you want to be. But really, we're going through it just like we were with a bare hand. Now we just have that massive glove to be able to help us out. And then we move on to our short hops. Again, every ground ball, as you could tell, is a little bit different, but every time really working on funneling up to the center of our body. That's just going to be able to develop really good habits. And then we're going to be moving on to short hops one-handed. We're not going to be doing short hops two-handed. And just about every short hop, we're going to be working through the ball. And then same thing with our backhand. We're going to be going through the ball. This is where you can go a little bit more quicker pace, because, I always like working on my transfer there as well. But this is a quick, maybe 10-minute routine that you can be doing for your player. You can instruct your player to watch this video. It's nothing super crazy. And this is something that I want to make sure that you guys are aware of. My drills aren't necessarily the craziest things. It's more or less how we do them and why we're doing them in a specific way that makes all the difference. So yeah, doing all of these drills is going to help you without a doubt. If you just did 10 reps of each one, that's great. But how we actually compete doing these drills, doing this routine, is going to make the real difference. So what I want to instruct you and your player to do is compete, right? So 10 of each without making a mistake. So let's say you get to 9, and on the 10th one, you make a mistake, you bobble the ball, you make an error. That's where I want to instruct you to go back to 0, make sure that we're able to get 10 done, and then move on to the next drill. And if we're not able to do that, keep at it until you are. I promise you, some of the students that I've been able to work with, they weren't able to get 10 in a row And then all of a sudden, after a couple of weeks or maybe a couple of months, they were able to do 100 in a row without making a mistake. So that's what I call progress, but it's all going to be done through repetition. So that's where, again, be truthful for what you're doing, the work that you're putting in. If you got to 9, you made a mistake on 10, and trust me, guys, I've done this with some students where the number was 50 and on like 48, they made a mistake. Yes, we can just move on to the next one, but what is that really going to teach? Not going to be truthful with our work. We have to be honest with ourselves. We have to look at ourselves in the mirror, making sure we're giving our best effort. So that means going back to 0 and getting the job done. If you're serious about helping your player improve, download the free recruiting blueprint down below in the description to help guide them towards their goals. And if you're ready to take the next step, go ahead also down below in the description and book a call with me to see if I can help your player.